Washington Journal continues.
Our first guest of the morning, Representative Eric Swalwell. He's Democrat from California on the Intelligence Subcommittee on the CIA, serves as a ranking member for that subcommittee, also on the Democratic Steering and Policy Committee, and serves as the vice chair. Good morning to you.
Morning, Pedro. Thanks for having me on.
What are you expecting out of today's leadership amongst the Democratic caucus, the leadership elections?
I expect Leader Pelosi will again earn the trust of her colleagues, will be elected as minority leader, and will lead us into the fight ahead. And there's a lot to fight for. Progress that's been made over the last 10 years for the Affordable Care Act, for climate change, standing up for Wall Street reforms. And we're going to need to defend those and then also shape a vision for the future. And, you know, I think she is putting new energy by her side to help her do that. And that starts after this vote.
We saw this election initially delayed. Reports of concerns among some Democrats about the future of the Democratic Party, especially after this last election. Do you think those are founded, and why or why not?
You know, over the last few weeks, our caucus has taken some time to talk about what we need to do, some internal reforms to go forward. So, you know, certainly opening up more positions to more members, making sure that more hands can help shape what's next. I think that was productive. Leader Pelosi, I've found, is someone who is a terrific listener. You know, and for me, my experience is I came to Congress in my early 30s. I was the first in my family to go to college. I have about $100,000 in student loan debt, and she immediately came to me and said, I want you to take your story, find other young members, go across the country, start a group called Future Forum, and listen to other people like you, and then stand up for them with legislation that addresses the needs of student loan debt and college affordability. And she's given me that opportunity. I've seen her give similar opportunities to younger leaders in the House.
And she had said initially going into the election she was confident about a large gain amongst House Democrats. That didn't happen per se. What do you think happened?
What did happen was we picked up 6 seats. And when you look at the last 54 years and the last 14 presidential elections, only one time did the top of the ticket's party in Congress, when that top of the ticket candidate lost, pick up more seats than Nancy Pelosi did. And so that was in 1992. The Republicans lost in 92, but they picked up 9 seats. We picked up 6. Almost every other time, the party whose candidate loses also loses seats in Congress. So she actually defied recent history.
And so as far as going forward, what's the message then? Should she win? Should this change in leadership take place? How do you change what happened last time and keep it from preventing again?
Well, what we need to do is all of us come together and shape the message. We don't have a president in the White House anymore, and so it's going to be a very different posture that House Democrats will find ourselves in. But I think what we should do is use that as an opportunity in that we can really define what's next. And that Leader Pelosi and those who are with her and behind her, we will be the new faces of the Democratic Party, and we will be the messengers that have to carry that out across America. And it's not just going to be on the coasts. She also named to her leadership team Sherry Bustos from Illinois, a third-term member. Matt Cartwright from Pennsylvania also will be a third-term member, and Hakeem Jeffries from Brooklyn.
If you want to talk to our guest, you can do so. Democrats 202-748-8000, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, 202-748-8002 for independents. In our previous segment, we talked about rural voters and the reach and reaching out to their concerns. We saw that play out in the election large. Do you think Democrats need to do a better job at that?
We certainly need to listen and stand up for those voters. I was born and raised in Iowa. My dad was the police chief of a town there. I was recently back in Iowa in October, and you drive through some of rural America, the heartland, and you see that companies continue to leave, and they're going overseas, and folks there are wondering, what's next for me, and what is the future going to mean for my kids? And I think that Democrats have an opportunity to not falsely promise, like Donald Trump has, that old jobs are going to come back or that the coal mining industry is going to return, but that we should invest in America's workforce and make sure that the new jobs are going to all parts of America and that we have a workforce that's ready for that.
Would you say that Donald Trump did a good job in selling the idea of jobs overall, at least keeping and bringing jobs into America, especially in light of what happened in Indiana with the Carrier Association?
Well, Donald Trump is very effective at creating the straw man. And whether it was with Ford, taking credit for jobs that Ford was going to keep here anyway. Donald Trump certainly has shown himself to be able to take credit for things that he has had nothing to do with. But I would rather than falsely promise things or take credit for things that we really have no control over, actually invest in the future economy. And that's going to mean that workers in every part of our country are going to have to be prepared for that.
And because of the economy and especially the announcement of recent positions, Steve Mnuchin as Treasury Secretary, Wilbur Ross as Commerce Secretary. First of all, what do you think about those elections overall? What do you think it says about what Donald Trump will do in the world of economics?
Well, it tells me that Donald Trump is somebody who operates with little to no core set of principles, in that he told the country during this campaign that he was going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. And what does he do? As President-elect Trump putting together his transition team, he has drained the swamp in his rhetoric, but he's actually refilling it with recycled water and people who are Washington insiders or former Wall Street folks. Most of his cabinet are people who have served in Washington before. And so I think, we'll see how long he can get away with saying one thing and doing another. And now he's going to be under a much, much hotter lamp. And I think he's going to melt.
Again, our guest, Eric Swalwell of California, here to talk about not only leadership concerns, but the incoming Trump administration. 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, and 202-748-8002 for independents. Mary is where we'll start this morning. Houston, Texas. Democrats line. Mary, hi. Go ahead.
Listen, for the congressman, you all should realize that Hillary got the popular vote. Donald Trump only was elected by the electoral vote. So you all also have a mandate to stand up and support bills that are good for the country, and those that are not, you all should not support them, and stand strong. Don't show no weakness, because that's what the Republicans did with President Obama. So you all should do the same thing, because you all have a mandate too, because she got the popular vote.
Mary, you're absolutely right. Donald Trump actually got fewer votes than Mitt Romney did in 2012. Hillary Clinton, of course, has now exceeded 2 million votes in her popular vote lead over Donald Trump. And actually, I don't think we need to beat ourselves up too much as Democrats about what went wrong. Certainly, I think when you look at Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, certainly those 4 states were pivotal, but it was about 100,000 voters between Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin that made the difference. And so we need to understand the needs of those voters. We need to really make sure that we are standing up for working class folks in all parts of this country. But I agree with you, Mary. That doesn't mean we just roll over and are on our heels as Donald Trump tries to unravel the progress that President Obama made.
Republican line, Cheryl, Livingston, Alabama. You're next.
Yes. Couple of comments that I would like to make. One is regarding the previous Carlo just called in regarding the electoral systems and how the Democrats should hold to whatever their mandate is. I think that is why there's a stalwall within the system, and that's why the Republicans are in there now. I used to be a Democrat a long time ago, and now I have to return Republican. The other comment that I would like to make is that the Democrat leadership is beyond the age of 70, the majority of them, and I think that that is a shame that they continue to go down the path with not bringing in more younger people and giving up that power and that leadership. Last comment that I would like to make is that highly represented by the states of California, New York, Massachusetts, more majority, larger states that seem to be represented. So I really don't think you all care a whole lot about the rural states. I think you are just, about controlling, and she will not give it up for that very reason. Thank you.
Cheryl, when you look at the leadership caucus, we are a majority-minority caucus, the Democratic Party. We look like America. The majority of our members are ethnic minorities, LGBTQ individuals, or women. And I'm very proud that that's what our caucus looks like. And I think when you look at our leadership and how it looks, James Clyburn, the number 3 on our team from South Carolina. So certainly we are geographically diverse as well as certainly our leader, who we are proud is from California. But for me, I do take umbrage to anyone who says that our leadership is too old. I'm 36 years old, and I was just nominated to be the youngest person in leadership, and also I would be the youngest person to ever hold the position of steering and policy co-chair ever, as long as that position has existed for the Democratic Party. So I do see opportunities being given to young people, and the future is bright, not just for what I've been given the opportunity to do, but as I said, many other hands who will be on deck in the fights ahead.
What do you think about the challenge that Tim Ryan of Ohio is posing against Nancy Pelosi?
I think Leader Pelosi is going to come out stronger because of it. Our caucus, has had productive conversations. She has gone out and asked for every vote, and I hope he's sincere in wanting to continue to bring new energy to our caucus, and that after the vote occurs, that he stays engaged, because we're going to need all of us.
So I want to play a little bit then of the argument he's making of why he should be in the position, and I want you to get your response to it.
Yeah,
Sure, we'll play it out first.
Well, I think there's an appetite for change within our caucus. I think people are saying, look, if there is a third of the voters in our caucus, it's probably the third of the voters that are in the closest elections of anybody in our entire caucus. And I think that says something. But the question really is, how bad does it have to get? I mean, we lost 68 seats since 2010. We have the lowest majority, or the lowest number we've had in our caucus since 1929, Steve. I mean, the question is, how bad does it have to get before we recognize we have a change? And there's a lot of working class people that are in congressional districts like mine, that are black, white, brown, gay, straight, that want economic opportunity, and they don't see the Democratic Party as the party that's getting it to them.
All right. Tim, if you were made minority leader, what kind of changes would you bring that she doesn't have on the table right now?
Well, I think emphasis. We talk about minimum wage, but people don't want a minimum wage job. I'm for an increase in the minimum wage, but that's not what people want. They want a middle class job. They want a job that they can earn a middle class living, have a solid pension, be able to go on vacation, and then also have the work-life balance to where they're not, working 80 hours a week to make ends meet. I think within our caucus, we're not tapping into the talent that we have in our caucus. People feel bottlenecked, like they don't have an opportunity. We need to raise the profile of these young Democrats and give them a platform to be rock stars in our party.
A lot of argument there, but Representative Swalwell, what do you think?
Yeah. We didn't lose as House Democrats. As I said, we picked up 6 seats despite the top of the ticket losing. And if people are frustrated with how the Clinton campaign performed, I don't think you answer that frustration by blaming Nancy Pelosi. You don't blame the person who won seats despite the top of the ticket losing. And so I think certainly we need to make sure that we're more agile going forward, that we have as much energy behind the leader as possible. But I just don't accept the argument that the top of the ticket lost and our message was off point. And I also want to say that our message as House Democrats throughout the 2016 campaign was a stronger America, one that would secure our economy, secure our democracy, and secure our country. And that was aligned with the Clinton campaign. And what presidential campaign would the party in Congress run a message that's counter to the top of the ticket? And I don't accept it. We did well with that message in light of losing at the top of the ticket, and I think we shouldn't beat ourselves up about that.
Let's hear from Carolyn in Troy, Missouri, on our line for Democrats. You're on with our guest. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm blessed. I was calling because I'm part of the Washington problem, I guess, because of how they handle the mortgage, the housing mortgage. This has not went away. It is still going on. And people are losing their land, their homes, through fraudulent mortgages. And I didn't understand how Eric Holden took it and gave it all to the lawyers to unravel. These people are still hurting. I'm hurting. I was hit with a foreclosure, never missed my mortgage. And I was hit with a foreclosure unexpectedly, and my property is sold. And I'm still living here.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Carolyn, I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that right now. And that's why I think it's critically important in the new administration that we protect the Dodd-Frank Wall Street reforms that were put in place after the 2008 economic collapse, which was caused by recklessness on Wall Street and loans that were made that never should have been backed. I also think it's important that we keep the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That was created by President Obama and has gone after banks and others like Wells Fargo. We saw recently the CFPB was able to go after Wells Fargo for thousands of employees who were creating fake accounts and charging customers millions of dollars that was erroneous. And so when we take away or roll back those protections, Carolyn, it's people like you, it's people like my friends and family in the East Bay area who are affected. And so that's why we're going to have to stand up and defend all the work we did to make sure that we don't go backwards from 2008 and that we continue to go forward and protect all Americans.
Steve from Ridgeway, Pennsylvania, Republican line. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Steve.
Thanks for having me on. Good morning. Hey, one of the things, I live in very rural Pennsylvania and predominantly, overwhelmingly Democrat by registered voters, but also overwhelmingly supportive of conservative measures and Donald Trump, and very proud of the fact that, we helped push Trump over the top and beat the Clinton machine. But my comment to you, Congressman, is, you made the comment earlier about the popular vote, and the popular vote difference, as we all know, makes no difference whatsoever. It's the electoral vote that gets the President of the United States elected. And the difference could just be the state of California or the state of New York. So essentially, there's a great big country out there between New York and California. And I just wanted to point that out. I like listening to your views. You seem like you have a very sound knowledge of what's going on, and I appreciate it. And it's very encouraging that you're such a young guy in the House out there, too. So I wish you all the luck, and nice talking to you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And as I said, as someone who was born in the middle of the country and has family, my wife's family's from Indiana. I'll be back there in a couple weeks. I appreciate those concerns, and I think House Democrats have to go into every congressional district over the next 2 years and contrast our economic uplifting message with the false promises that Donald Trump has made, and we need to earn every vote, not just on the coast. And I look forward to being a part of doing that. And what's next?
He mentioned the popular vote and the Electoral College. What do you think about these efforts on recounts of these select states?
Sure. We all knew going into the 2016 election that you had to win the Electoral College. So, it doesn't really, it's, I guess, comforting that we won the popular vote and that it wasn't a complete shellacking, I guess you would say, but we lost the Electoral College, and if we want to be in the White House, we need to learn how to win those states back, especially states that hadn't gone Republican in decades, like Wisconsin and Michigan. But, the request by Dr. Stein for recount in the Clinton campaign, joining that, it's a constitutionally allowed request in those states, and Donald Trump, spent about a year saying that the elections were going to be rigged, and even after he won, he said that millions of people voted illegally. So if he also has an interest in making sure that the elections are credible, then I think he should welcome those recounts.
Glendale, Arizona, Independent Line. Matt, good morning.
How you doing? Yes, just speaking about that, it's reported there was like 18 million illegal votes. And do you think that it should go back to just, a piece of paper? You go in and make your vote on a piece of paper. You show your ID. I think these electronic machines are just hogwash. And that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, Matt, there's no evidence that there were 18 million or even 18 illegal votes in this election. And, for Donald Trump to say that, again, it shows a pattern of willing deception. And that should concern Americans. And I think it's going to catch up to him. It may have served him well as candidate Trump, but as president of the greatest nation in this country, if you continue to deceive and get caught, I think it will catch up to you. And I don't expect him to change. A leopard never changes its spots. So I think we're in for some interesting times ahead. But it's really incumbent on members of Congress to hold him accountable. And I plan on being a part of the heat that is put on Donald Trump as he continues to tell these outrageous lies.
So when it comes to things like efforts that he wants to make on infrastructure, is that something you wouldn't align yourself with?
Well, efforts to improve infrastructure, all of us want to see our bridges and tunnels and rapid transit and high-speed rail improve. But his efforts, it sounds like, right now are corporate giveaways or to dramatically reduce the tax code for the biggest companies in this country. I think the way that you do it is actually investing federal dollars into these projects, increasing the fuel tax to make sure that we have enough money. We haven't done that in over 20 years. and right now most cities and counties are really left on their own as self-help counties. And so I think if you want to think big, invest the way that Eisenhower did with the highway system. He didn't give a lower tax code to all the companies that were going to benefit from it. He took American taxpayer dollars and said, you're trusting me with your taxpayer dollars. I'm going to make America move around in a more efficient way by investing in our roads and tunnels, and we became a greater country because of that. That's leadership.
Have there been discussions amongst the Democratic leadership, including yourself, about what possible changes might happen to the Affordable Care Act and how Democrats will respond? Sure.
We know that Donald Trump campaigned on repealing the Affordable Care Act. He has not talked about what he would replace it with, and now, of course, after talking to President Obama, he has said that he would like to keep all of the popular parts. Well, here's the problem, and here's why it's so dangerous to have somebody so unprepared to be president, which is all of these pieces work together. And so you can't say, I'm going to keep the pre-existing conditions part because I know that polls well and it's popular because it actually really helps people, but I'm going to get rid of the mandate part. The reason the pre-existing conditions part works is because everyone is required to have health care, and when you have more volume, you have more people in the system, you're able to allow insurers to take on more risks for people with pre-existing conditions. So again, he's going to find out relatively quick that being candidate Trump is a lot different than being the person who's actually in charge.
What's the strategy currently being worked on by Democrats then?
Well, the Affordable Care Act, which has given millions of people health care who have never had it before, I think is going to sell itself. And we're already seeing that governors who have received money under the Affordable Care Act to take care of their Medicaid population, they are starting to think twice about whether Republican governors are thinking twice about whether they want to give back this money. So I actually think it will, on its own success, be able to put the pressure on Donald Trump. And like most of the positions he's taken, I expect that he's going to start to tiptoe backwards because he doesn't want to upend something that's
even in
popular.
light of the announcement of premium hikes, even in enlightenment of the number of young people enrolling, and you still think that that is a selling point then, overall?
I think he's going to hopefully tiptoe backwards into a position where we can actually work to improve the Affordable Care Act. And I think if there's been any travesty of the last 6 years, it's been that many most Republicans did not want to do anything other than repeal it. So many of the reforms that could have brought more competition into the marketplace to keep the premiums lower, they were never given a chance because Republicans only offered repeal or nothing. And so now I hope that we can sit down and have a sensible conversation about what repeals need to take place. I believe that reforms are needed. I voted to reform the medical device tax and take that out because I knew it was hurting device makers and hurting jobs. So I'm open-minded. I know many Democrats are. But if you're just going to repeal it without any alternative, that's a non-starter.
Eric Swalwell, our guest, Democrat of California, serves on the the Select Intelligence Committee, also the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Killeen, Texas. Lavette on our line for Democrats. Go ahead.
Hi. I don't know if you're hearing me or not. I can
hear you.
The volume down. Okay. I wanted to tell you that Nancy Pelosi really has to go. When we voted Obama in 2008, we wanted universal health care. We had power back then. She couldn't even bring the Democrats to agree with the single-payer system. The other thing is that I'm constantly listening to political people, and none of them have actually said that in order to fix Obamacare, you have to go after the health care system. The insurance company, the pharmaceuticals, I haven't heard any of this. What I believe is that in 2008, when we had the power, the Democrats forgot about the Democrats who voted them in. They were just worried about the Tea Party and all of the screaming that they did.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lavette, appreciate the concern, but actually, Tea Party came about after the Affordable Care Act was passed. That was really where they became powerful. And I was not in Congress at the time, but I do remember that fight. And Nancy Pelosi, working with President Obama and Harry Reid in the Senate, stitched together a coalition that got the best health care reform that the country has seen since Medicare, and she did it, having a diverse caucus that was being pulled in many different directions, and she stitched it together. And the Affordable Care Act, I think, was the consensus idea of the caucus. And again, I believe it should be open to reform today, but I think that it was one of her greatest feats, not a weakness in how she brought members together for the Affordable Care Act. And many members paid a price, and over a few dozen lost their seats the next election because of the courageous vote of stepping forward for the Affordable Care Act.
From our independent line, Elroy, Wisconsin. Harold, you're next.
Good morning. I'll tell you something. There's so many red herrings out here. I got to complain. First of all, Hillary had 240 electoral college votes to start with. All she had to do was win 30 more. She couldn't do it. Okay, the population, the popular vote. This is crazy. California has 40 million people in it. The lower 27 states have 39 million in it. There's a reason for that. And Trump only campaigned in 15 states. If he had campaigned in all of them, the popular vote would have been absolutely crazy. So I don't understand. He deflects everything you ask him. He deflects, and it's got to quit. This falsehood has got to quit. Trump destroyed two dynasties, the Bush dynasty and the Clinton dynasty. He owes nobody nothing. Let's give him a chance.
Yeah, and Harold, the fact that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote and the fact that more people voted for congressional Democrats than congressional Republicans just says to me that there's no overwhelming mandate for President Trump, and that he should see that as a reason to work with Democrats in Congress, not as a reason to try and plow through them, believing that he was sent here with a tremendous win. And so, but you're right, he won the Electoral College. He is the next president, and work with him where we can. But I will firmly defend the progress we've made because I do not believe he was sent here with a real landslide mandate.
This is Lala from Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, Democrats line.
Hi. Yeah, I just want to say you guys seem like you're doing a pretty good job in California, and you guys got a lot of votes this past election, but the rest of the country not so good. I think if you could look to the message of Bernie Sanders, what he stood for, what he voted for, and what he fought for as far as our steady move towards oligarchy, the top 1%, having more wealth than the rest of us put together, just about, corporations controlling the government, income and wealth inequality. I think that's the driving force in the vote this election. And I'll let you take it from there. Thank you.
Yeah, Lala, what's ahead for House Democrats is going to be a priority of going to every state in this country and making sure that every person has a freedom to dream, meaning that where you live does not define where you can go, that we have opportunities for everyone to save to buy a home, to save to send their kids to college or a trade school, and to be able to enjoy a secure retirement. And I believe that means that we must make sure that every community across our country is prepared for this new economy. And that means investing in transportation and infrastructure. That also means having affordable college and no student loan debt for anyone that goes to a public university. And it also means workforce retraining, because there's many people who still have many years ahead and want to be productive and contribute to their community and their family, but they're seeing jobs go away. So we need to make sure that businesses are rewarded for investing in those communities and not rewarded for sending jobs overseas.
Our guest is on the Intelligence Subcommittee on the CIA. He serves as the ranking member. I want to ask you about Donald Trump's selection of Mike Pompeo to head the CIA. What do you think of that selection? What does it suggest as far as the message Donald Trump is sending by it?
I like Mike Pompeo. He and I went to Iraq last year for Easter and spent time there together and in the Middle East with our troops. I don't agree with him on Benghazi, but I do think he is a person of character, and I really believe we're going to need him to be a check against Donald Trump's desire to go back to our days of torture, something that John McCain said that we cannot allow our country to do again. He's going to need to be a check, Director Pompeo, against Donald Trump's full embrace of Russia, a very, very dangerous adversary. And I think Donald Trump has been co-opted by Vladimir Putin, and he is playing right into Putin's hand, and that really does concern me. Russia is wreaking havoc in the Middle East. Its support of the dictator Assad in Syria is killing and displacing thousands of Syrian people. It's making it very hard for us to also see stability in Iraq. It threatens our greatest ally, Israel. And then, of course, Putin was responsible for the bringing down of an airliner over Ukraine. And his incursion into Crimea threatens stability in that region. And so for all of those reasons, we need Director Pompeo, a man of integrity, to stand up when Donald Trump wants to take us to places that America's never gone before.
I want to also ask you about this attack that took place at Ohio State University, with ISIS saying now that the man was a soldier who was involved in it. Do you believe that, and what do you make of the claim from ISIS?
Yeah, well, God bless the officer who took that terrorist down. ISIS, when they say somebody is a soldier after the fact, that usually means that it was not a directed attack by ISIS, but that from what they have gathered from the attack, it's an attack that they endorse or support. So I'm waiting to hear from the intelligence community, whether this individual was on any watch lists, had ever been contacted by the FBI, had ever been in communication with ISIS. We certainly know that they have publicly said that if you can't get your hands on a gun, use a knife. Also using vehicles as weapons, as we saw in Nice, is also a way to wreak havoc and cause mass casualties. So hoping for the recovery of those victims there, but again, really thankful for that police officer being there and taking him down.
Well, let's hear next from George in Jacksonville, Florida, Republican line. You're on with our guest.
Yes, regarding Representative Eric here, he's just typically a Democrat who is just trying to oppose everything Trump is trying to do. I support the earlier caller he's an independent, who said that Trump had destroyed the Clinton and the Bush dynasty. That is a tremendous accomplishment. These are entrenched people that should be dislodged and allow the reality to reflect in our culture. Here in this case with the terrorist guy at school, Obama had imported 50,000 Somali at a cost of $130,000 per person. Why would we want to import people who want to kill us? It just doesn't make any sense. And these people out there, the Democrats, are crying tears over, you call them Islamists. They call themselves Islamists. Why can't we understand? If you call yourself a terrorist or Islamist or dying for God, why can't we just say the same?
Yeah, well, George, people who believe in Islam are not terrorists. And so when you say, why can't we work with Donald Trump, it's very hard to work with somebody who has people on his team who have proposed having a Muslim registry, or who have compared the way that we need to address radical Islam is by interning people of faith, of Islamic faith, just as we did with the Japanese internment camps during World War II. I just reject that. That's not who America is, but I do think we need to get smarter and better in the way that we fight terrorism. We need to make sure that our FBI and our local law enforcement agents have all the tools they need. But also, you mentioned that Donald Trump brought down the Bush and Clinton dynasty. And, this is not about a single person. It's not about the Bushes. It's not about the Clintons. Certainly not about Donald Trump. It's about people like you, and it's about people like Carolyn, who called in worried about what's going to happen with her home. And so who we elect matters in people's everyday lives. And if we have somebody who wants a fair economy, who believes in equality for all people and opportunity for all people, we all end up doing better.
Texas is next. Winston, Democrats line. Go ahead, Winston.
Yes, good morning. I'm kind of jumping back to what we were talking about earlier with how the Democrats have kind of lost the old working class that used to be the bolster of the Democratic base. And what I'd like to talk about is long-term strategy. The Republican Party, the right wing, has had a long-term strategy from at least 1970 with Roger Ailes' control of, conglomeration of the media and controlling the message. So what I want to say is that the best thing for the Democrats to do is get on the ground here in rural America. Okay, the heartland is the entirety of America, not just, the Rust Belt, what y'all call the Rust Belt. I grew up in a steel town in northeast Texas that no longer exists. It died in the 80s under Reagan. But what I'd like to say is, back when I was a kid, people understood, where Democrats stood and where Republicans stood. Those lines have been blurred by Roger Ailes' plan, to control the media, control the message. So get on the ground. Here, I'm in Wood County, Texas. There's no Democratic Party. They had a Republican headquarters, but in the state of Texas, the Attorney General refused to fund, I think it's supposed to be $2,400 a year, to local party activities. So the Republicans get a headquarters because they're rich, and Democrats don't have any representation in rural America.
Gotcha, Winston.
Yeah, Winston, my mom told me when I was a kid, 80% of life is showing up, and that's a lesson I've taken away here. The Clinton campaign didn't go to Wisconsin, and for whatever reason, if you don't go and ask for someone's support or their vote, you risk them believing you're taking them for granted. And we need to go to Texas. We need to go to every state in this country, and we need to show working class folks that we have an economic message that wants to work for everybody, not just those at the top or those that would benefit from Wall Street reforms that would benefit big banks and the wealthiest 1% and hurt the rest of us.
Another quick intel question. Political reporting that Donald Trump, the president-elect, has received a third intelligence briefing as president-elect, highlighting the fact that the vice president-elect Mike Pence receiving more briefings on intelligence matters since Donald Trump's. Your take, your reaction?
Yeah, I'm very concerned that Donald Trump has been skipping his intelligence briefings and is taking fewer intelligence briefings than any recent president to come to office. And the American people need a leader who goes through the presidential's daily brief on a daily basis. This is not something that you can just farm out to the vice president. We need the president who makes the decisions to be ready. And again, this just goes to somebody who doesn't really seem to be up for the job and not prepared for the job. And that really does concern me. And again, we are going to see that being candidate Trump is a lot different than being President Trump. And, we'll wait and see what's next. But, for someone who is so worried about the classified briefings that Secretary Clinton was receiving, or believing that she shouldn't be receiving classified briefings, he should show up for one and be prepared to do the job.
Our guest this morning, our first guest of the morning, Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat of California. He serves on the Intelligence Subcommittee, also serves on the Democratic Steering Policy Committee. Thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you, Pedro.
Coming up, we are going to hear from another member of the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Chris Stewart of Utah. He's going to discuss national security issues, what he thinks about Donald Trump's pick for security positions. And then later on in our program, it's our weekly Spotlight on Magazine segments. This week, we'll take a look at the piece in New York Magazine that deals with the topic of fake news. Those discussions coming up as Washington Journal continues.